What does the Minister for Crime, who used to be, of course, in the Treasury, think of all this? Chris Philp, hi, good to see you.
Good morning, Kate.
All the board should go, all of them.
Well, I think it's right that the Chief Executive, Alison Rose, has resigned. It seems clear that she disclosed confidential, personal information about one of the bank's customers, Nigel Farage, who, of course, you were interviewing just a second ago. Turns out that information wasn't accurate, so I think it's absolutely right she's resigned. I'm also and the government more widely, are deeply concerned that people are losing banking services as a result of their lawful political views. Whether you disagree or agree with someone's political views, they're entitled to have banking services. We believe in free speech. We believe in political freedom. Banking services are critical. You can't survive in the modern economy without them. And so it's completely wrong. People are being denied these services based on their political views. So if they hadn't have done this in the first place, it would have avoided these problems.
And in answer to my question?
About the wider board, I think the person responsible has resigned, and that's the right thing.
So nobody else needs to go?
I think the right thing has happened by Alison Rose resigning.
Yeah, but do the others need to go as well, which is what Nigel Farage is calling for this morning?
Sitting where I am today, I don't think that's necessary. The person primarily responsible, the Chief Executive, has taken responsibility and resigned, and that's the right thing.
What does it have to do with the government?
Well, the government is concerned about freedom of speech and political freedom more widely, and we were very concerned about the fact that someone had been denied banking services for their political views. And that doesn't apply just to NatWest or Coutts, it applies to all banks. The City Minister, Andrew Griffiths, is meeting, I think, a number of banks today to make that point very forcefully.
What about the other 9 banks that have also turned him down?
Yeah, I heard that report this morning, and if that is true, and I've got no reason to believe it... so I've got no reason to disbelieve that at all. But if that's true, that is wrong as well.
OK, so what should happen to their chief execs?
Well, I mean, obviously the case here was about disclosing confidential information and, as it turns out, inaccurate confidential information.
So what does Andrew Griffith want with all these bank leaders?
Well, I think what he wants...
Is it because they're turning people down like Nigel Farage because of their political beliefs, or is it because they're giving away private information?
No, it's the first. So there's no suggestion these other banks have given away private information. The point Andrew Griffiths is going to be making, I think, more widely to all banks is they should not be denying people banking services because of their legal, political views.
But what if they do? What should happen to them?
Well, they shouldn't do it, and the Financial Conduct Authority, as the regulator, should take whatever regulatory action is appropriate. And by the way, if you talk to MPs, not just Nigel Farage, if you talk to MPs, most MPs you speak to will say that they've either individually or their spouse or even their children have had problems accessing financial services.
Have you?
Yeah, my family have, actually, yeah.
Why?
I don't want to go into detail. Because you've got these rules around so-called politically exposed persons.
Why were they turned down?
Yes, because we have these rules around
bank?
politically... I don't want to go into details because it's personal, so if you don't mind, I'm not going to go into that. But a lot of MPs have either themselves or had their families turned down for banking services because of these politically exposed persons, or PEP rules. Now, they were designed to stop, essentially, members of foreign governments who had obtained their money dishonestly from using the UK banking system to essentially launder it. So the sort of rules were set up for the right reasons. But MPs quite often get caught by these PEP rules, so because they're applied kind of overzealously. And it's not spoken about much, but if you talk to almost any MP that have had an experience like this, I think the Nigel Farage case is an extreme one, but I'm afraid it's not unique.
So should politicians be exempt from PEP rules?
No, I don't think that, but I think they should be applied sensibly and proportionately. They're designed essentially to prevent money laundering. That's a sensible objective. But if you're talking about a regular run-of-the-mill, UK backbench MP there's nothing, unusual about them, it's overzealous. Well, that's a good question. I think certainly... you always ask good questions. I think certainly the NatWest Group should offer him banking services because it's an essential thing. You can't survive in the modern world without it.
Yeah, but should he have one at Coutts if he wants one?
Well, obviously, Coutts have very particular rules, and I don't know the details of whether someone should fit in Coutts or NatWest or whatever. But I think the NatWest Group certainly should be offering him banking services if he wants to.
And not just personal banking services, but business banking services as well.
Yeah, I don't think a bank should withhold any kind of banking service, including business banking services, because of somebody's political beliefs. We believe in free speech, we believe in political freedom. That means everybody who holds lawful political views should have access to banking services, personal and business.
Let me talk to you about Jason Farrell's report, which I know you have seen about the situation.
Well, I haven't seen it, but we spoke for 2 minutes outside.
OK. How concerned are you, from what you've heard from Jason, that the Greater Manchester Police are potentially abusing their powers?
Yeah, I spoke to Jason just a few minutes ago before coming into the studio, And I was concerned by what Jason told me. And I think I should congratulate him and Sky for doing the investigative work that brought this to the public's attention. Yeah, I'm concerned. What he told me about does sound deeply troubling, and it clearly needs properly and thoroughly investigating.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, I'm going to make sure that the IOPC, the Independent Office of Police Conduct, are aware of this. Now, they're the body which independently investigates allegations of police misconduct. Now, they're independent of government, rightly, so I can't direct them to do a particular thing, but I'm going to draw this case to their attention today. So if they feel appropriate, they can, if they're not investigating it already, which they might be, if they're not investigating it already, I want to put it on their radar screen so they take a very close look at it.
OK, are you going to speak to Greater Manchester Police?
So I speak to them on a relatively regular basis, and yes, I will be asking them about this, yes.
OK. Should they be handing over all of the CCTV of this young girl as it relates to her? She thinks that she was raped and she hasn't got the footage to prove one way or the other. Greater Manchester Police do have it and they won't give it to her.
So, I mean, Jason said there were 2 hours of footage that were missing from the period in custody. I can't think of any good reason why that would be withheld. So, I mean, there may be details I don't know about, but on the face of it, yes, all of the footage should be disclosed.
I mean, she's a young girl, off her chops, with cocaine and you know, she apparently had alcohol in her system as well. And she finds herself naked in a cell and there's 2 hours of footage that's missing.
Yeah, I agree. On the face of it, yes, all of that should be disclosed, yes.
OK, we have had a statement from Greater Manchester Police, which we read out earlier, so I don't need to read it again, but we will refer to it again a little bit later on. Are you satisfied? Actually, I don't know if we can look at that statement. If we can look at it, and maybe we can share it with the Minister as well. I just wanted to check whether you were satisfied with the statement. I don't know if you've seen it already.
No, I haven't.
May I read it out to you? Thank you. It says this. There you go. Greater Manchester Police is aware that these 3 individuals are unhappy. There's not just the one girl we were talking about. With the service they received when they were arrested and detained, their complaints have or are being investigated by the force. It goes on. There we go. The one investigation is ongoing. There is currently no evidence to suggest any GMP employee have misconducted themselves or committed a criminal offence. And there's one more page, I think, which says this, Minister. Under the definition within the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 2 of these individuals were not strip searched. Due to concerns for their welfare, their clothing was removed and replaced with anti-rip garments. This process is subject to different legislation and guidance. If it's as straightforward as that, one wonders why they won't show us the footage.
Yeah, well, as I say, I can't think of any reason on the face of it why the footage would get withheld. There may be some reason I'm not aware of, but I think it would be reasonable, given the seriousness of the allegations, to disclose all of it. And these allegations, as I understand them, are particularly serious, especially in relation to one of the cases where there's an alleged sexual assault. And that obviously needs to be investigated properly. And as I say, there is an independent mechanism through the Independent Office of Police Conduct, the IOPC. I will make sure they're aware of this. And if they consider appropriate, because they are independent of government, I can't direct them, they should take a look at it.
One final question, if I may. Is it time for a Casey-style review into all our police forces and not just London?
Well, so Baroness Casey, as you say, did a very comprehensive report into the Met. We have an inspectorate, Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services, who inspect all of our forces on a regular basis. They had raised concerns about the Met's performance before Baroness Casey's report. Indeed, the Met were in, they call it engage, it essentially means special measures, before the Casey report. So the inspectorate had identified issues that needed to be addressed. I've got full confidence in the inspectorate's ability to inspect issues and identify them. So I don't have any plans to commission a sort of wider Casey-style review because we've got an inspectorate who can do that.
OK. It's good to see you, Mr Philp. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.